What's going on, folks? I'm Connor Stallions, and there's only one place I go to for my Texas game plans, and that's On Texas Football.
That's right. This is On Texas Football, Connor Stallions' favorite show, our favorite show. I'm your host, Blake Monroe, where I'm joined by Jerry Hamilton and Bob Shipley. You're watching Coffee and Football, presented by Rick Vavro and Austin Underground. We are, 2 days away from kickoff. Big game this weekend. So
Bobby Burton en route to Ann Arbor.
That's right. That is correct. I mean, a lot of people traveling up there, guys. And let's go ahead. And by the way, tell us where you're checking in from, get your questions in, all that good stuff. But let's look at the weather. Not much has changed since we last looked at it, y'all. A high of 60, a low of 39. It's a little chilly.
Coach,
a little cloudy.
Does that get you fired up, Coach, right there?
Yes, sir. It sure does. That's hog killing weather.
It says the jacket may come in handy for the football game. So that's your football forecast here. But guys, let's talk about that. Not the weather so much, but the actual game itself. Last time we looked at the line, Jerry, which was 2 days ago, Texas was a 7-point favorite. The game, of course, opened as a 4-point favorite, but now that is up to 7.5 points. ESPN's matchup predictor gives Texas a 73.6 chance to win. Quite the large number there. Coach Shipley, we've talked about it over the past couple of days, but this is your first time on Coffee and Football this week, so we want to hear your thoughts regarding the Texas-Michigan game.
Yeah, I don't know where all this confidence is coming from on the Texas side. I mean, I do understand it, but I don't know. There's something going on up there in Ann Arbor that we don't know about, or people are coming to the realization maybe that are staunch Michigan supporters that they're not what they thought they were going to be. I don't really know, but I know there's a couple of scenarios, that I see up there. And one is going to be best case scenario, and one is going to be not so good case scenario. And that is, I really feel like that Michigan defensively, with the defensive lineman and the edge guy they have that are as good as anybody in the country, I don't know that they change a whole lot of what they're doing. I think they try to stay and see if that can stop our run game, see if they can get any pressure on Quinn, and drop guys back in coverage because, we like to throw the ball. And so I think with the studs they have up front, I don't know that there's that there's a reason for them to do anything other than see if those guys can control the game. And what we always say, make them beat you left-handed. And Michigan is certainly a running team, and I would stack the box to a certain extent, and force us to force them to beat us running the ball. Now, of course, the tight end they have is sneaky good. He's their go-to guy. He's a guy that is always going to be the one they're looking for on third down. We've got to take him out of it, but other than that, I think the best case scenario is that we go in there and we're able to move the ball against their defense, and we can handle their running game. Worst case scenario is they move the ball up and down the field on us and running the ball.
Condensing the game too.
Yeah. And offensively, for us, worst case scenario is for them to be able to control our run game and put pressure on the quarterback without having to do anything special. And if those two things happen, then the worst case scenario is going to be a long, long night for us. But I made a crazy prediction. I think it was on Monday on the winning drive. Somebody asked for your crazy prediction. Mine was Texas is going to outrush Michigan.
Wow.
So I don't know. That's a pretty pretty hefty thing to throw out there, but it's one of those things that could happen, but nobody's expecting to happen. So I threw it out there.
Yeah. So my thoughts. This is the first time we've been on a show together this week for the game, but my thoughts are first down run defense is just about everything for Texas defensively, because if they can slow down, if they can keep it to 2nd and 8s and some 2nd and 9s instead of 2nd and 5s or 4s, that's going to change Michigan's the way Michigan has to attack 3rd downs against Texas, 2nd and 3rd downs, for sure 3rd down. So I think first down run defense is huge in this football game for Texas. And then offensively, I mean, I just remain the same. I hate to be pretty simple about this, but without knowing what each team's going to do schematically, what they're going to throw at each other, they did not show week 1 because they both will have something. And it may be more Wink Martindale defensively than Michigan offensively, unless they have more Alex Orji in the run game and try to attack that way. But a pass pro is my thing on offense for Texas. If Texas can pass protect, because Wink Martindale is what he blitz 40% of the time against Fresno. I bet he blitzes more than that against Texas, especially early on. But if Texas pass pros and their first down run defense is solid, then I think Texas is going to score points up there. I think Texas is the better team. That doesn't mean they're going to win the game. This is not the same Michigan team that won a national championship. Everything's changed. We talked about it all summer. I do think the coach, maybe the best thing that's happened for Michigan this week is everybody saying they're going to get their butt kicked. That's the best thing for the coaching staff at Michigan. If these guys needed any extra motivation, they've only won 23 home games in a row, 16 in a row as a program, and are defending national champs. It's saying somebody's going to come into your house and beat you up, and the line keeps going up and up and up. So that's the best thing that's happened to Michigan. Not that the players needed motivation necessarily, or the coaching staff needed motivation, but they just got some extra.
Yeah. I don't know how long that kind of motivation lasts, but it certainly helps you to go into a game with a chip on your shoulder and just total disrespect. Although the University of Texas football team had nothing to do with setting the line or anything like that. It's just the fact that people don't respect us. So.
And Coach Shipley, we got a question for you kind of regarding the Michigan game. But before we get to that, Jerry, will you let everyone know about Rick Valvro and Austin Underground?
Well, I can certainly do that. Rick Valvro and the folks at Austin Underground has specialized in difficult underground installations since 2004. You know what 2004 is? When Texas beat Michigan. I guess that's technically 05, but that's great. That's a great year right now. Their extensive engineering background gives them the ability to perform work that many other firms consider too risky. They offer an end-to-end client experience that includes seamless communication, budgeting, staffing, and top-notch trade partners and solid quality work every single time, no questions asked. If you have a commercial project that needs a best-in-class solution, contact the folks at Austin Underground. And again, since 2004, guys, I mean, that 2004 season bled into 05. That's the only time Texas and Michigan have ever met, and Dusty Mangum was the hero after Vince Young's legendary performance.
That's right. All right, Coach Shipley. Bobby Betronic says, Coach Shipley, it's game day. You prepared for this one opponent since fall practice. Talked about them since last season ended. How did you get the team to then let it go on the field after that?
Well, I don't know that you start working on game one quite as early as some people might think. Certainly the coaching staff is. The players aren't, other than maybe watching some film. But, I think Sark has got this thing working pretty well in terms of the culture that he's created. It's not really culture, but it's just the expectation week to week. It's a long season, hopefully, you're going to be hanging around for 16 weeks or whatever, so you take it one step at a time, you take it 1 week at a time, and you have one shot to beat every team on your schedule. And so, you can't afford, I tell coaches and, that all the things, the enthusiasm, the confidence, the hard work, all that stuff, as coaches, we better bring it. And so I think it's just a long season, and you've got to pace yourself. You don't need to get too high. You don't need to get too low, but but you realize that it's one false step is not going to end the season, but you do want to try to go through and take each week as seriously as you possibly can.
Good stuff. And guys, obviously a big game that doesn't need to be said, but how about this?
Oh, yeah.
Matthew McConaughey is going to be there for the big noon kickoff. He's their special guest. They're doing a 3-hour show beginning at 8 a.m. Central Time. We talked about this the other day, Jerry, but Derek Jeter,
oh boy,
captain for Michigan.
You know, it's a big game when they're bringing up the Yankee Clipper from Tampa. I've said that before, but yeah, it's a big game when they Jeter, McConaughey. Man, it's a massive game. There's only very few games and very few times where College Game Day and the Fox Noon group are at the same venue at the same game at the same time. And this is one of those. So obviously it's not a huge weekend as far as the schedule goes. This is the marquee game. So I'm not sure ESPN really had any other options. But still, this is the defending national champs in Texas, who was in the college football playoff, going to Ann Arbor for the first time in history, which is amazing how long those two schools have been playing football. This is the first time this has happened. So it's a massive game. Michigan will set a new attendance record Saturday. Texas is going to travel very well. While one loss doesn't end your season in college football anymore, this is an opportunity for Texas to truly stamp that. It's always the Texas is back, and then after the first loss, after the Texas is back, is said, the national media jumps on, right? Jumps on Texas. This is an opportunity. Texas has an opportunity. It's very rare in college football Saturday. Last year, they went on the road in game 2 and beat Nick Saban in Alabama by only got team to ever beat Nick by double digits. In the following year, so they just beat the greatest coach we've ever seen at his house in his last season coaching, as it turned out. Now, the following season, game 2, once again, you go on the road to play the defending national champ in their house. Go ahead. I mean, that's very rare air that Texas has a chance to kind of do big things in. And this would be another, and I know at the SEC championship and making the college football playoff, the Georgia game, the Oklahoma game, the return of the A&M rivalry, and that massively robust offense they showed last week. I know that's all huge as the season moves along, but this is a rare opportunity for Texas because they get a chance to do something in back-to-back years that not many people have had an opportunity to do in college football history.
Good stuff, Jerry. And then, so Sark meets with the media here in just a little bit, a few hours from now. Anything we're expecting to hear him say? What are we looking for, listening for when it comes to that? Not really, not for me. I think the hay's in the barn on this deal. I really do. I'm not expecting Sark to say anything unexpected. I think he's going to lean on focus, leadership, a team that he feels like has had a really good week of practice. It's locked in and ready to go face a really good challenge in a hostile environment in Michigan. I think that's where this is at. I think the game plan, I think that, like I said, the hay's in the barn. I think that for everybody I've talked to, this is a very focused football team, as you would expect. You get the season opener out of the way. Correctable errors in the run game defensively. They need to be headed into this week. I think the big thing is, you're another weekend to all these new players on offense being more comfortable in the system. They now have a game under their belt. I mean, that's one of the things I go back. There's a lot of similarities to Texas and Alabama, Texas, Michigan, but here's one that's not similar. Last year when Texas went to Tuscaloosa, Xavier Worthy was year 3 of the system. JT Sanders, Jordan Whittington, year 3 in the system. Jonathan Brooks, year 3 in the system. Quinn was a second-year starting quarterback, so he wasn't the first-year starting quarterback, so he had familiarity with the system. The only newcomer was A.D. Mitchell, and A.D. Mitchell, he traveled to Austin with 2 national championship rings, so he'd already seen how it's done, right? It's a new system, but he knew how it was done. This year, it's different offensively for Texas. The offensive line has the experience. Quinn is a third-year starter. But the wide receivers, these guys have not played much football at all in the Texas scheme. So this is week 2. This is week 2, game 2 for these guys in the system. They have a game under their belt. Somebody said in the chat,
They're predicting more Nyblack and Bolden this week. I totally agree with that. I think Sark is going to find a way to get the ball in the playmakers' hands more so. I don't think he had to do that as much last week. Let those couple of those new guys get their feet wet. But I think that's the one difference between this game this year and last year is you kind of wonder, is the Texas offense ready to go on the road, Coach Shipley, and have it humming like they were last year? Because there is a difference in experience.
Yeah, there is. And I got to tell you, I was a little bit I was very fearful, I guess you might say, going into Tuscaloosa last year. I wasn't sure if we were quite there yet, you know. And then we came out and played pretty much 4 quarters of really good football. And so that leads me to be more optimistic this year. You know, let's face it, guys. We all have PST. We've all been through this. We've all been through this. We're back crap, you know, only to have, you know, our feet jerked out from underneath us so many times. But I feel good about this game. I really do. I think you've described it really well, Jerry. I think it's I'm a little worried, like we were talking about the line moving the way that it's moving. It could even give our guys a false sense of security that you know, we're better than we think we are, you know, possibly, which is certainly not good.
Hey, Blake, you told everybody else where they were checking in from. Show people where I'm checking in from this morning.
That's right. I am. You've been on the road, and Jerry, you've been leaving your mark everywhere you go. Look at you there, flashing the hook on this.
I'm setting it off right now. Walked it. I'm in Athens right now. Stayed in Athens last night before I head south. I've been in Atlanta. Oh boy, even Ugg is an on Texas football fan, guys. I mean, it's SEC time. It's SEC time. I couldn't be more excited. And I'll say this: I've been to Georgia a few times before when I was doing this job nationally, and I can tell the fans this: make sure you hit that game next year. Make sure you hit the game next year at Athens. It's really cool. It's one of the best college towns in America. I have great respect for the Georgia program. Obviously, I'm having fun there, but great respect for those guys. Obviously, Coach, you know some of those guys. Will Muschamp, Stacy Searles on that staff. But for the Texas fans, make sure this should be a bucket list game for y'all, especially when Georgia's really good. It's going to be think about it next year. Arch Manning starting for Texas at Georgia between the hedges. That's probably a game you want to get to.
Yeah, that's going to be a great one.
All right, so Jerry, you have been on the road, obviously, as I said, kind of leaving your mark everywhere you go, it seems. But you've also been seeing some pretty dang good recruits.
Oh.
What do you got for us, and what are you planning on seeing today or tomorrow?
Look, I mean, I was been driving around. Obviously, I was at Saraland to see KJ Lacey Monday. I was at Grayson High Tuesday to see Nick Brooks, Joseph Mbachu, who is going to be a stud defensive lineman. I'm not saying he's going to be a gold jacket Hall of Famer, but he gives me Chris Jones vibes from a guy who blew up as a national recruit. For those that know the story, I was over rankings at 24/7 Sports at the time when Chris Jones was coming out of high school, and Robert Kimdichie was the #1 player in the country, and then Reuben Foster, the linebacker, was the #2 ranked player in the country for a lot of people. And Bobby Burton got a call on Chris Jones at Houston County in Mississippi, and he was like, Jerry, this guy I've known for years. When he tells me somebody's good, they're normally pretty good. And I said, well, let me just get in the car and go see the Houston County, which I'd never been to in Mississippi, to see Chris Jones. And Chris Jones was committed to state, didn't have the big offers. And I walked away from there thinking I just saw one of the best prospects, long-term prospects in the country. I ended up ranking Chris Jones #2 overall in the country when people had him as a 3-star recruit. And people moved him up after that. But Mbachu gives me those vibes from this standpoint. This is his first year playing football. I don't know if you could pull that Instagram. Coach hadn't seen this. This would probably really impress him. But Mbachu is committed to Florida for now. I don't think that'll last. He's visiting Texas the 21st. He's going to visit Georgia. He's going to visit Auburn. Everybody's offering him now, LSU, Tennessee, USC. But, Coach, he's 6'4.5", 275, 280, 10-plus inch hands, 81 wingspan, naturally powerful and quick and explosive. And he's only been playing football 6 months. And so that guy was truly, truly impressive. Nick Brooks has got a real chance. He's already lost 10 pounds since he moved to Grayson. He's on his way to his goal of 340 by the spring. Grayson has a 2026 linebacker, true five-star linebacker for me. Tyler Atkinson's a bad dude on the football field. He's knocking helmets into the stands. So that was Tuesday. Yesterday, went to Milton High to see Caleb Bell. Caleb Bell is the son of Kendrell Bell, Georgia linebacker, Pro Bowler in the NFL. Caleb Bell, 6'3", 260-ish right now, late developer physically, committed to Arkansas, but he's also probably going to visit Texas next weekend. Texas recently offered him 81-inch wingspan, 10.5-inch hands, a lot of upside there. It's funny. I get to Milton yesterday, I think it was around 12:30, and he had actually talked to Kenny Baker earlier that day. So saw Caleb Bell yesterday. He's going to visit Texas with his dad and I think his a sibling next weekend. Then I went over to North Gwinnett, one of the power programs, Grayson, North Gwinnett, Milton. Those are some real power programs in the state of Georgia. And I went over to North Gwinnett yesterday afternoon for their practice after Milton. And Braxton Kyle, the defensive lineman committed to Rutgers that Texas and Georgia have offered. I think he's going to need a little longer physically there to get there. I think he is one of those guys when with the scholarships going to 105 now, you're going to see some of these power programs take that extra defensive lineman in each class and give them time to develop and put them on a different stash and develop, I call it, put them on a different timeline. Braxton Kyle, I think, would be one of those guys. We'll see if he actually visits Texas, though. I'm not sure on that one. We're in Mbactu. And here's Mbactu. I think Blake's got the Mbactu. Coach, this dude's impressive now. I mean, this is a very large athletic human. Again, he just started playing football last spring. He moved to the States from Cameroon 10 years ago, all of 6'4.5", 275, 280. Works a job at Waffle House on weekends, guys. I mean, this is a kid that he's been a soccer, basketball player, just getting into football, carries a job as well. But he's going to rise. Now, he's in the rotation because, again, he's just now starting to learn how to play the game. But his upside, I'm telling you, been doing this a long time, this kid's upside is extremely high. And there's a reason you've seen Texas, Auburn, Alabama, Georgia, LSU, USC, Tennessee, South Carolina. They've all offered him since the first tape of his senior season, his only season playing football got out. So he's been extremely impressive. I'm on the road today. Again, I'm going to keep these a little under my hat for a while where I'm going today. But tomorrow, we'll talk about it in the morning, but tomorrow, Friday evening, weather permitting, hopefully it's not a washout, going to go watch Jamie French tomorrow night, Jacksonville Mandarins. So I'm making my way to South Georgia. And then Jamie French here, some highlights of him, junior year stuff with Jamie French. And I'm going to be at the Mandarin Sandalwood game on Friday night. Again, weather permitting. I think it's supposed to be nasty weather. So that's where I've been this week. It's a fun week on the road. And when I was driving from the Atlanta area, north of Atlanta to Athens yesterday, I was thinking to myself, you know what? There is no doubt the week that Texas plays at Georgia next year, that's the week I'll be back here hitting high school, seeing all the young prospects Texas is on in the Atlanta area because there are plenty. I've said before, Rod Babers and I got into the discussion, Atlanta metro area, obviously Dade, Broward counties, the two most talented neighboring counties in the country for a long time. And then DFW, especially I-20 from Lancaster to North Crowley. Those are the three most talented areas in the country right now, high school football. So lucky me, I get to go to two of them back to back.
Oh, man. You're everywhere, Jerry. Absolutely everywhere. All right, guys, before we move on here, I need to let people know about one of our sponsors in HelloFresh. And with HelloFresh, you get farm fresh, pre-portioned ingredients, and seasonal recipes delivered right to your doorstep. You can skip trips to the grocery store and count on HelloFresh to make home cooking easy, fun, and affordable. That's why it's America's #1 meal kit. With summer in the rearview mirror and football season ahead, now's the perfect time to save time and money when it comes to your dinner routine. Skip the meal planning and grocery store lines with HelloFresh's convenient doorstep delivery and pre-measured ingredients. Guys, life is busy, real busy. That's why the On Texas football crew uses HelloFresh. Jerry obviously running around the country covering recruiting, Bobby flying around chasing the team, and it's obviously a full-time job keeping those two in line. So we use it because it's so fast and simple that it works great for us, and it will work great for you too. And here's the best part. They're going to hook you up with free breakfast for life. All you have to do is go to HelloFresh.com/free-on-Texas. You're going to receive one free breakfast item per box while your subscription is active. That's free breakfast for life just by going to HelloFresh.com/free-on-Texas. And that's HelloFresh, America's #1 meal kit. And then, Jerry, if you don't mind, I'm going to let you tell everybody out there about one of your products as well, Manscaped.
Oh, it is the product. It's the Beard and Balls bundle, baby. Fellas, do you want your grooming routine to be a one-and-done deal? You better. Well, the days of using the same trimmer for your face and your private parts are over. There's our favorite sound. Thanks to our friends at Manscaped. Our great friends at Manscaped, by the way. They've come up with the ultimate package to keep your hairs trimmed from 12 to 6. Introducing the Beard and Balls bundle featuring the Lawnmower 5.0 and the Beard Hedger, a trimmer from the Moneymaker and another for the boys downstairs. Get 20% off plus free shipping with code ONTEXAS. That's all caps at manscaped.com. That's 20% off plus free shipping with code ONTEXAS, all caps at manscaped.com. For the premium grooming experience, trust Manscaped. And I'm here to tell you, if we look at the college football schedule this weekend, there's going to be a lot of manscaping going on because there aren't a lot of good games outside of Texas and Michigan.
Thank you, Jerry. And let's look at those games, guys. Tonight, not really a great slate by
I guess SMU's just going to play a Thursday schedule. Oh, no, SMU's Friday. SMU's playing like they're not even going to get a Saturday game this year, are they? They've played weekday games the first 2 of the year.
Yeah, tonight you got South Dakota Mines at Michigan Tech. Excuse me. And no nationally televised games tonight. And then Central State, Ohio at Grand Valley State tomorrow, as you said, Jerry. BYU, SMU, Western Illinois, and Indiana, and Duke at Northwestern are going to be your 3 televised games. But Saturday, it gets a little bit better, fellas. Let me bring that up. And obviously the big one, Texas at Michigan. But there's some other good games tomorrow as well.
Coach, Arkansas at Oklahoma State. Arkansas played Pine Bluff, one of the worst opponents you can play to open the season, so everything looked great. Now you go on the road to Oklahoma State. Mullet will be flowing. Arkansas, a big test at Oklahoma State. If Arkansas shows well against Oklahoma State, that's pretty big for the Razorbacks this year because everybody kind of got high on not the hype train, but they were talking about Arkansas's offense looked really good. Pine Bluff's bad team. Right? People could call their number on Pine Bluff if the top teams played them. So that's a big game, Coach, for Arkansas Saturday.
Yeah, it is. It is. It's going to be an interesting game as well as one right down the road from us. UTS Texas State is going to be. That's going to be a really good game. But the other one I was looking at in the SEC was let's see.
So there's South Carolina at Kentucky.
South Carolina, Kentucky. That's another one to keep your eye on. Right
Kentucky
there.
got some injury issues right now.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, for sure.
And then I'll scroll down and let y'all see the evening.
And then, of course, Iowa State and Iowa ought to be a real barn burner.
Oh, yeah. That's the highest over-under in years in this game, right? 39.5? The number, isn't that the highest? Blake, it's normally in the mid-30s. Now it's 39.5.
Yeah.
By the way, Houston at Oklahoma. Oh, Houston looked bad last week. That would. By the way, Mississippi State at Arizona State. This one's sneaky. If you want to watch a future opponent, Arizona State beat the snot out of Wyoming last week. I believe it was 49-7 or 48-7. Wyoming went to the Arizona State and left with a 5.0 is what they did. But Mississippi State had a win last week. See what they do on the road against Arizona State, a future opponent. So that one will be. Hey, where's Duke? People are talking about Duke. Kansas at Illinois.
That's going to be the Friday night, 8:00 Northwestern.
Okay. Oh yeah, Duke. That's Malik Murphy at Northwestern, and our SAT is higher than your SAT game. So that's a lot of very intelligent discussions in the stands during that game. By the way, the Northwestern has one of the most expensive tickets in college football this year because they're playing while they're renovating or building their new stadium. They're playing right there on the lake in a smaller stadium, so really high ticket prices there. I'll see Georgia Tech at Syracuse. Don't get too high. You get knocked off. Is FSU? They played Monday, so they're out for a while. They need it. I bet, Coach, you're right. UTSA at Texas State. The winner could get the Baylor job if it opens.
Yeah, and Baylor
Yeah.
plays.
It's like the Baylor game, isn't it?
Yeah, the Tech job.
Yeah.
Very true. Hey,
Ski Brett I got to bring up Ski Brett. He had something up here. He said something earlier that I thought was hilarious because I called out A&M fans, and I didn't mean to call them out like this, but this comment here. Coach, I don't know if you saw this, but the Aggie thread's all in art about your 80,000 versus 100,000 because I said we're talking about A&M and the ticket prices are giveaways right now. And I'm like, look, if you're going to call yourself the best fan base and we have this best home field advantage, you don't just show up when your team's winning or if they're playing somebody good. This is the week you prove you're the best fan base. And I'm not just taking a shot here. I'm being real. They better have 102,000 or however many people they have there cheering on their team, helping their team get better, getting behind their team. If 80,000 people show up, stop that we're the best home field advantage bullcrap because that's all it is. You just show up when you want to, not when you're needed, when you want to.
Bobby sent this in, wanted us to show this from Kyle Umlang, and he says, "Be careful, everyone. I had 2 tickets to McNeese State versus Texas A&M game this weekend in my car. Someone broke in and left 4 more." So there you go.
Yeah, that's pretty funny. I think tickets are $11 right now for that McNeese State game. Best prices.
Oh, man. All right, guys. Well, we got actually one more thing we need to talk about. Jerry, you mentioned, excuse me. Goodness, hope I'm not losing my voice. I got to find it here.
That'd be bad timing.
Kentucky. And the first SEC injury report. This is a whole new thing, but the first report, this is how it looks exactly from the SEC, but it came out last night. And, Coach, I'm kind of curious to get your thoughts on this as a former head coach. What do you think about the new SEC injury report?
Well, I think it's good. I mean, it is what it is. We know that gambling is a huge part of football at any level, and I think Jerry probably is the first one I heard made the point about that. I wasn't even thinking about that, but that's probably what's driving this. But I like it. I think our injury list is pretty decent shape right now. Actually, I haven't seen ours, but it's just more accountability. You don't have too much time to prepare for a team anyway, and so we're just following the NFL model. It looks like to me, and I'm more of a traditionalist personally. Surprise, surprise. But it is what it is, and you can't. It doesn't affect the game to me one bit because I don't gamble on games, so it doesn't affect me at all.
Hey, by the way, Blake, so if I don't know if you can bring that back up, but Kentucky's got some injury issues right now. And I'm not saying they're going to lose to South Carolina, but we talk about some teams that are banged up now. Starting running back, transfer from Ohio State, Chip Training, really good player. And it's not Deone Walker, the first rounder, but 3 D linemen out, not questionable, probable, out. Offensive lineman Cortland Ford, who was a Cedar Hill kid who transferred in to Kentucky, I believe was a starter, out. None of their top 2 receivers are Barian Brown and the kid that transferred in, Macklin, are out, but some of their depth. I mean, so Kentucky goes – that's what's going to be interesting is Kentucky goes into this game is more beat up than South Carolina, that's for sure. So that'll be interesting to see how that impacts this game. People are also we didn't talk about one key game for Sandman says Texas A&M's injury report. Everybody doubtful, fans doubtful, because only 80,000 are going to show up. I think maybe 85 based on ticket prices. But look, the Colorado at Nebraska game is a very interesting game Saturday. That's going to have a lot of eyeballs on it. Obviously, Matt Rule year 2, Deion Sanders year 2. At Nebraska, at Colorado, there was some back and forth last year. It seems to be that's kind of quieted, but this is a big game for both programs, and Colorado especially. I think because they beat Nebraska last year. Obviously, got Nebraska once again this year. This is a big opportunity for Colorado. This is games where, and I think Colorado's got a very difficult Big 12 schedule. They play all the ranked teams, and I think 3 of them on the road. But this is a game where if Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter have really big games here, this can impact your early Heisman race and how some of those things set up, especially Travis Hunter for me in a game like this. But the question is he going to stay healthy all season, playing both ways as much as he is?
This is a game of 2 teams that are being built by 2 totally different architects. You know, I think you've got one that it kind of reminds me back of my days going to Sunday school. You know, you've got a wise man that builds his house upon the rock, you know, and I'm not saying that Deion and Colorado are the opposite of that, but they seem to be. I mean, how many new guys did they have on their team again this year? Half. I mean, you know, so you see a guy who's building it one way and a guy who's building it the other way, and I don't know which way is going to be the best way, especially long term. I see probably Nebraska being more of a long term fit. I see Jerry Jones grabbing Deion Sanders as soon as he can because he loves Deion. He loves him some Deion Sanders. But it is going to be a good game, and again, I hope that makes sense. But two teams that are being built by 2 totally different architects.
Absolutely, yeah.
Hey, and one thing to know, the Texas tie-in guys, thanks to Alex Kelso for bringing this up. He says, isn't Colt calling that game? That will be his debut. Colt McCoy.
Oh, wow. I did not know that. That's awesome.
We'll be covering that one. So his TV debut is that one. So pretty cool.
By the way, people were talking about it in the chat. Obviously, got Gus Johnson and Joel Klatt Saturday for Fox, which is awesome. I mean, Gus Johnson just brings such amazing energy to any broadcast he does, and I'm a big I'm a big fan of Joel Klatt and the work he does. So that's a great broadcast for the Texas fans. Now, that's the second best broadcast because we'll have a watch with us.
That's right. And goodness gracious. All right. So speaking of that,
I'm broadcasting the Abilene Christian games Saturday evening. So not so fast, my friend.
Are you really, Coach?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. West Georgia, Abilene Christian, shot in Wildcat Stadium in Abilene, ESPN Plus.
That's awesome. Congrats, Coach. I did not know that. That's very cool.
Yep. Grant Boone.
That's all. Who's doing it with you?
Do what?
Who's on the call with you?
Grant Boone.
Okay.
Grant
awesome.
Boone is a guy that has spent an awful lot of time on the PGA network. He's an Abilene Christian native. He is the uncle of Pat Boone. Pat Boone was his uncle, the singer, dancer, actor on, I don't know, Blake, you probably don't remember Pat Boone, but anyway, yeah, we're calling the Abilene Christian game Saturday. So watch out when you're ranking us broadcast crews,
Yeah, I got a new number 1 or 2.
Yeah.
By the way, Texas Tech is at Washington State this weekend. From what I've heard, 7th grade quarterbacks in the Apple State are lining up to get their chance at the Tech defense after last week.
Yeah, Abilene Christian almost should have won the game. They went for 2 points at overtime and didn't get it. But Rick McIver, whose father was Maverick McIver, the quarterback for Abilene Christian, originally signed with Texas Tech. His father was Rick McIver, who was a quarterback at the University of Texas in the early to mid 80s, who had a cannon for an arm and a cannon for a leg. He could punt it all the way across the field. He was an amazing athlete, and his son's having quite a career.
Well, I do encourage everybody to listen to Coach Shipley. I also got to plug this here game day coverage for wrong one. It would help if I put up the right one. My apologies on that. Texas and Michigan game day coverage. Saturday conversation starts at 7 a.m. right here on Texas Football, followed by the Texas Tailgate at 9. Watch with us begins at 10:45, and then the post-game live immediately following the game. Jerry, you're a huge part of this whole production. Tell folks what they have in store if they've never, spent a Saturday with On Texas Football.
Yeah, so a great Saturday conversation. Obviously, a Texas tailgate, a little preview of what we're doing. The watch with us, I love to watch with us because, I don't know if Coach is going to be on there, but myself, Rod, Bobby, maybe Coach for a quarter, depending on his schedule. But we get in and talk about the game. I love to talk about the game. I see it from a recruiting perspective too. I covered a lot of these guys, even if it's the Michigan guys. Back in the day, some of those kids who were a little older when I was doing more national stuff, but watch all of those guys play. So I love it from the football and the recruiting aspect, kind of how that stuff ties in together. And Aaron Hogan does a great job hosting it. And we're going to have a lot of fun with it. And hopefully after the post game is going to be a celebration. And we'll see. Again, Texas, don't turn the ball over in your own territory. Be +1 in the turnover battle on the road. And I think Texas has a really good chance to win this game.
Okay, guys. Well, it is time to get to some questions, and we definitely have quite a few of them. I want to start with this one, though, from Jack. Thank you, Jack, as always. He says, "Hook 'em, Coach Shipley. Thank you all for all you have done for Texas high school football and for Texas football. Two sons who are awesome, and I expect some grandkids will continue the legacy."
Thank you so much, Jack. I'm not sure about the grandkids. Jordan pulled me over to the side not long ago and said, "Dad, I've taken a look at these 11 grandkids. I don't see much fast twitch in them." So that's okay. Put them get a golf club or a tennis racket. It's all good.
Hey, by the way, in the chat, they've mentioned this. Xavier Worthy NFL debut tonight, guys.
Oh, that's right. That is correct, Jerry. I forgot all about that. This next super chat here from Jay Lee. Thank you, Jay Lee. He says, "Emory at LSU tore his ACL yesterday. Jonathan Gray seemed to have similar luck. Who was a better prospect coming out of high school?"
It's interesting. I saw both of those guys. We had Emory in the Under Armour game and had him at camp. So I saw him a few times when I was ESPN Under Armour. I think Emory probably had more speed than Jay Gray coming out of high school. I think Jay Gray had really unfortunate injury luck. I mean, I'm not sure, Coach, I'd ever been around a running back that had both shoulders operated on before he played a college football game. That one was different because that means genetically you might just not have been built for that position and all the pounding you were going to take. Then he had the Achilles injury, obviously. But I think Jay Gray had the worst injury luck, one of the worst injury lucks I've seen from a really talented running back. I think Jonathan Gray was a better natural running back. And I know he ran to open space to the lead open because they were so good. But I still think he was a better natural running back than Emory. But I think Emory may have been a little more athletic, had a little more explosiveness and top end speed comparing those two.
Thank you, Jerry. And before we move on, fellas, I need to tell everybody out there about one of our newest sponsors, Underdog Fantasy. Get in the game. Football season is here. Underdog Fantasy is the best place to play fantasy sports. And how does it work? It's super simple. Just download the Underdog app or go online. It takes almost no time. Playing their pick'em game, I can make my picks, submit an entry in less than 60 seconds. Or I can take all the time I want, dig even deeper, make up to 8 picks in a single entry, and win up to 325 times my money. Underdog adds a ton of excitement to the sports viewing experience, especially for football, which is why I personally love it. And the best part is you can watch your progress update in real time. And today, Underdog is hooking us up as football season is now in full swing. You can go to underdogfantasy.com, use promo code ONTexas. They're going to give you a first deposit offer of up to $1,000 in bonus cash plus a free pick. And Jerry mentioned it earlier, Xavier Worthy, the Chiefs start tonight. They're going to give you an additional site-wide Travis Kelce free pick that you'll be able to take advantage of, but you have to hurry. There's less than 12 hours to get in on that. Again, underdogfantasy.com. Use promo code ONTexas right now. Get that first deposit offer of up to $1,000 and 2 free picks if you count the Travis Kelce pick. That's Underdog Fantasy, our choice and the choice for daily fantasy.
I'm going to ask the Texas fans, jump in there. Help on Texas football out there. We want that to be extremely successful with Underdog and show the Texas fan base is all in on it.
Definitely. Okay, guys, more super chats to get to. And Antonio Harris, thank you. He says, predicting a breakout game for wide receiver DeAndre Moore. Do either of you see that?
I
that's
think
it. That's really interesting.
Go ahead, Coach.
And I was just going to say, it's interesting. He played 23 snaps last week and did not have a reception, after getting the start. So I look for DeAndre to say, hey, it's my turn. Let me get a shot to make a play or two. But he wasn't a factor, obviously, last week.
I think he's got a very important job blocking this week. He is a more than willing blocker. Texas run game, I think, is going to need to start outside in this game. And so I think that perimeter blocking, Coach, I don't know what your feeling is. I think perimeter blocking is going to be huge in this game for Texas in their run game. And that could just be quick passes too, which is essentially your run game. But that perimeter blocking, I think, is going to be huge for Texas this week.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And I think it seems like the last couple of years we've done a better job each year with our perimeter blocking.
Hey, by the way, James Henson's got this question. He has asked it 3 times. For the third time, Jerry, where can I get a hat like yours? We're going to have some. We're going to have 2 different styles of hats. We broke a few of those out last week just to get people's kind of thoughts and reactions to them at the tailgate before the Colorado State game. But we're going to have merchandise coming soon.
Good stuff. All right, guys, another super chat here. This one, if I can find it, from Tex Beats. Thank you, Tex Beats. Says, can't wait to see the script that Sark has cooked up for Michigan. I think everybody can't wait.
Coach, my question to you is the teams that have had success against Michigan in the last couple of years, spread them out. Now, my question is, we're somewhat guessing here. Because even if we knew, we wouldn't say, obviously. But Sark is, kind of what are your thoughts on how he attacks Michigan early?
Well, I sure don't think you run right into the teeth of that buzzsaw defense they have with 3 of the top defensive players in the country. But I do think, I've always said this. I like to run them sideline to sideline early, like to get them breathing, like to get them kind of gassed a little bit, and you won't get near the pass rush or the run rush support that you would get with those guys with them being fresh. But I look for us to try to have some success early. I think you said it. First down is huge for us on both sides of the ball. It's huge, and but I do look for us to try to have some success early, throwing the ball, mixing in a few runs, but. I don't know that we're going to go into this game thinking that we're just going to dominate the line of scrimmage. I think the way that you run the ball against Georgia is you get them tired. And then if we could somehow get a lead, and my told you always before, my philosophy is always take the ball. I mean, you get a coin toss, you take the ball, and you try to just put your will into them from the very first drive. We're going to score, and then they're playing catch up from then on. That's the kind of ball I like to play. But I know Sark is aggressive. I don't know if he's aggressive enough to take the ball if he has the choice by winning the coin flip. But I would take the ball and I would get on them early where they're going, here we go.
And then McBoogerballs 512. That name always makes me laugh. Thank you for the super chat. Who's the new Jordan Whittington to you guys? Let's go Horns, hook 'em, and beat Michigan.
Well, the guy that's modeled himself that way is DeAndre Moore. Now, the difference is Jordan Whittington was a more experienced player. Texas didn't have the wide receiver depth last year. Obviously, even if they had a little more depth, I think there's a reason Jonte Cook, even though he was still adapting to college football and learning a scheme that was really new and a lot for him, didn't get on the field more because you've seen what A.D. Mitchell, Worthy, and Whittington are doing in the league already. But I do think DeAndre Moore is the player that's modeled himself that way. He's the guy that's wants to be that type of player that is in. He likes that role, that possibility of playing that role. Now we'll see what does that mean for snaps. Like Coach said, he had 23 snaps last week. How many snaps does he get this week? Or is Silas Bolden, I think, going to be more of a part of this game plan this week, now having a game under his belt? Maybe, I'm not saying Sark hit him, but, bringing him along slowly since he went in for spring. But I don't think that's going to last for very long. So DeAndre Moore's the guy that wants to be to play that Whittington role. But the question is, how much more starting this week has Silas Bolden worked into the offensive game plan? And I do think it'll be more.
Okay, and then our next one, guys, is going to come from Mike D. And Mike says, who has the advantage in defensive line and offensive line, Texas or Michigan? Coleman, welcome back, Coach Shipley.
Well, those bad dudes that Michigan has on their defensive line answer both of those questions. They've certainly got the more highly ranked and valued defensive front with proven commodities from guys that won a national championship last year. Offensive line, I think our offensive line is on par with theirs. I think our offensive line probably has more upside, but that can be negated somewhat by a great defensive line that Michigan has, really not letting you impose your will on them offensively because those guys are just so I hate to call them dominant. They're not dominant, but they're very active.
And I'll add to this. I mean, I think it's the depth of the Michigan defensive line, defensive front that impresses me, even maybe more so than the front. I mean, Rashawn Benny, he doesn't get much acclaim. He's going to play on Sundays. They have depth. They have some young kids, too, that aren't even playing that much right now. Trey Pierce, a couple of guys like that who are probably going to be future NFL players. They have really good depth on that defensive front for them at Michigan. So they're more proven, obviously. I think their combination look, this could very well be the best, should be the best defensive front Texas plays against this year. That I'm not saying Georgia's not good or Texas A&M's not good. I think they're both really good fronts, but I think the combination of the two D tackles that Michigan has with the edge of Josiah Stewart, who I think is the guy Texas has to control Saturday for me. I know the D tackles are good, but Josiah Stewart can wreck your passing game timing. But then the depth of that defensive line is what's so impressive to me about Michigan. They can roll in more than just the starter bodies and have future NFL players. They got really good depth.
Our next question is going to come from Scott. And Scott says, gentlemen, Sark is everywhere right now. He really is. Every station, every show. How in the world does a head coach of his caliber even have time to adequately prepare for a big contest like this? Those are huge commitments. And he's done a ton of media appearances this week. So I get what Scott's saying.
Well, I tell you, he doesn't sleep much. I know that. It's always amazed me, people that can't handle that. And a lot of people can't handle the pressure of the time that it involves. And when does he talk to recruits? I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy. And not just the head coach, everybody on that staff is probably working till 11 midnight every night, 7 days a week, and up there first thing in the morning. And it's a tough. It's a high burnout rate. That's why you see guys get into broadcasting and do other things, but others are gluttons for punishment. They just can't get away from coaching. They just keep going on and on and on and on. And obviously Mac Brown has figured it out and he handles it very well. And I think Sark so far has been very consistent with his demeanor, with his attitude, with his patience in answering questions and things like that. He seems to be hitting a pretty good rhythm right now.
By the way, so on their schedule, just for this is kind of funny, that question was brought up. So yesterday I get the Milton High. I said earlier, I went to see Caleb Bell and then Braxton Kyle, two defensive line recent offers by Texas. So Texas practices in the morning, and then I show up to both those schools. They're like, oh, yeah, Kenny Baker. I just talked to Coach Baker at Texas right before we got out to the practice field. So the coach's point, when do they literally, this thing is scheduled, boom, all the way through day to day. And it's not them doing all the scheduling, right? They have the position and coach assistants. They have the recruiting staff. But, man, to say these guys are working on a strict schedule on a day-to-day basis may be an understatement. I mean, it's obvious that Kenny Baker got off the practice field, and right after he got off the practice field, before lunch, before then the meetings after lunch, the first thing he did was, boom, here's the block times. I need to reach out, shoot a text, make a call to some of my D-line targets before they hit the practice field for afternoon high school practice, before we get back in meetings. So this thing is all planned out day to day. I remember somebody telling me about, Nick Saban's schedule a few years ago about just, man, it was to the minute every single day. From the minute he got into his office, the minute he left, there was something planned every single day, every minute, every hour in Nick Saban's day. It's no different, especially to the point of the question, how much media responsibility you have these days as a head coach and in big games like this. Jay Lee asked a question. I want to get to this. What was the kid's name you said last week from Georgia? He played really low and looked like Byron Murphy. Yeah, that is Walter Mathis Jr. at Savannah Country Day. I believe one of the most underrated defensive linemen in the country. And there's so many in Georgia. Some kids are going to be underranked just because of the way the industry is. But this kid's not a 3-star prospect. That's a joke. I'll tell you that. But Walter Mathis had June visits to Clemson, Miami, Auburn, and LSU. Didn't commit, sitting back, waiting. He's talked to Texas multiple times in the last couple of weeks, and a visit is becoming a possibility there. And I think the kid's a stud. 6'2", 280, 285. Plays with great leverage, really, really strong hands naturally, and has a motor. What more do you want? Does that sound like a 3-star prospect with that visit list, guys? Nope, not this one.
We got a super chat here from Jarrett. Thank you, Jarrett. He says, keep killing it, fellas. Hook 'em. Thank you. Appreciate that, Jarrett.
Thank you, Jarrett.
And then our next question is going to come from, if I can find it. Stewart here. And he says, coming out of high school, who was the best wide receiver prospect? Was it Jonte Cook, Ryan Wingo, Jamie French, or Lockett? Jerry?
I mean, Ryan Wingo, from a height, weight, speed standpoint, was truly elite. I thought he, was underranked, but some of that, he was underranked after his senior year, but some of that was he missed the majority of his senior year with a knee injury. So there wasn't senior tape out there where other guys are that did have senior tape. But Ryan Wingo, from a height, weight, speed standpoint, is a little different than most guys. Then you factor in what you've seen right now early on, which is kind of the not fair part of this, because Jamie French and Khalil Lockett are playing their senior years in high school. You've seen Ryan Wingo's ability to move after the catch for a bigger wide receiver, and I think that's really, truly what's going to set him apart long term. Jamie French and Khalil Lockett, the things I'll say about these guys, though, if you were listing the receivers in the 25 class around the country that have the best body control, that are 50-50 ball winners, that have the best feel and timing when the ball's in the air, they may be number 1 and 2 on the list. If not, they're 2 of the top 4. So Texas has 2 tremendous wide receivers that both can play X. I think French will move around more. I think Lockett's an X at the next level. They can go turn 50-50 balls against taller, longer limb corners, better athletes in the SEC in the 75-25 balls. And that's really good for Arch Manning in the future. But I would say Ryan Wingo, from a height, weight, speed combination, he ran 10.55 as a junior in high school. I mean, and was consistently in that 10.65 range. That's pretty rare for a kid his size.
Good stuff.
Yeah, and Max Muller says, Lockett has most ridiculous body control. That is really – Khalil Lockett, look, he has 11-inch hands. He's got probably an 80-inch wingspan. He's a young kid, hasn't turned 18 yet. His body control is the best in the country I've seen at wide receiver position. I mean, I think he's just tremendous there, with great timing and great feel too. He sets it up well he doesn't let his eyes give it away, but then he can adjust to the ball in the air as well as anybody you'll see.
Jerry, before we move on, one last time, I'm going to let you tell everybody about Austin Underground before we get to these last few questions of the day.
Blake, I'm going to need a second on that. So get one more.
That's fine. I got a comment I wanted to read anyway. I'll let you get ready while reading that one. And Houahan Golfer says, Blake, not football, just a shout out for Duke Ellis. Had his first MLB hit last night in Texas for the New York Yankees, plus a nice grab in the corner of left field. Coolest part, he took Judge's roster spot. Hook 'em. Ellis was always one of my favorite Texas baseball players, so that is awesome for him. I didn't know that. Didn't see it. Haven't had much time to watch the Rangers here lately, so very cool. Thank you for letting me know, Houahan. And are you ready now, Jerry?
I am ready now. Sorry, my screen got I deleted it.
I understand. Go ahead, take it away.
Rick Vavro and the folks at Austin Underground have specialized in difficult underground installation since 2004. That's right. The year Texas ended up in the Rose Bowl and beat Michigan 38-37. Legendary Vince Young performance, first to 2 there. Their extensive engineering background gives them the ability to perform work that many other firms consider too risky, not Austin Underground. They offer an end-to-end client experience that includes seamless communication, budgeting, staffing, and top-notch trade partners and solid quality work every time, point blank, full stop. If you have a commercial project that needs a best-in-class solution, contact the folks at Austin Underground.
Okay, thank you, Jerry. And we got a big super chat that just came in, so I'm going to jump right over to that from Jason Watts.
Holy moly.
And Coach Shipley, I'm going to credit you on this one. You come in and we get the big ones here. So keep up the hard work, fellas. Jerry, get that cameraman a good dinner tonight. No chicken tender drive-thrus. Hook 'em.
Look, yeah, that happened last night was a checkers night. But for those that don't know and aren't following the thread on TexasFootball.com, my son Jez is with me this week. He's doing some social media stuff for On Texas Football. So I've been posting some photos like with him and Nick Brooks that show how big Nick Brooks looks. That's over on TexasFootball.com, my On the Road thread. But Jason Watts, thank you very much. So, look, we're very transparent here. Jason Watts, we grew up down the street from each other, been friends for years. And a great human being right there, guys.
Good stuff. Okay, all right. Like I said, we got time for a few more questions, fellas. I want to take this one from Colton Martinez. Do y'all think the fact that Michigan's defensive tackles were rumored to be recruited by the Longhorns, Michigan might have some extra motivation? Personally, I don't see it, but what do y'all think?
I think this game
Personally, I think that
Go ahead, Coach.
Go ahead, Jerry.
I was going to say all the motivation these guys need this week is every NFL team's going to be represented in Ann Arbor at the stadium. Kelvin Banks, Cam Williams, look at who they're going up against. Josiah Stewart, 2 edges from Michigan, they'll be draft picks. Mason Graham, Kenneth Grant going up against an offensive line that some are calling top 2 offensive line in the country with Georgia. I don't think there's Will Johnson. Look, the kid from Fresno had 5 or 6 catches for 90 yards against him last week. This week, he gets to go up against Isaiah Bond and guys that are being talked about as future draft picks and high draft picks at Texas. This game, I'm not sure players are going to need much motivation here. I know from the Michigan side, I can imagine being a player on that team. But one thing I'll say, and I say that because now everybody's telling them they're going to lose at home, which they haven't done in over 2 years. I mean, imagine everybody in the media is, taking Texas. I mean, imagine being a player in Michigan. They're going to have a little something extra this week, I think, in terms of emotion and motivation, because when everybody tells you you're going to lose and you're the defending champs, no matter how much has changed, that gives you a little extra something. But then from a Texas perspective, look, it's where it's just so similar to Alabama last year for me is when you're on the way back up and still ascending as a program, to have opportunities like this back-to-back years, the Texas team doesn't need any motivation. I mean, I think the toughest thing for coaching staffs nowadays, Coach, with the change to 12-team playoffs is, if we lose this game, it's okay. We can still go make the playoffs. That's a different mindset you have to deal with from a college football coaching standpoint that hasn't really been there the last few years. Some of your players may be like, hey, man, we can lose a game. We're cool. It's all good. We can just go 10-1 the rest of the way and make the playoffs. That is not the way you want your team to be thinking. So that's a little different thing the coaching staff have to deal with in college football that hasn't been there before.
Yeah, I think that's you see that in the NFL. You see NFL teams lose games, and it's not that big a deal, because everybody's pretty much going to lose games unless you're the Dolphins back in the 70s or whenever that was. But I think there can be some motivation there. We've talked about that before. So-and-so Texas didn't recruit me. So when we play y'all, I'm going to have, that's pretty shallow stuff. I mean, that might last a series or a couple of plays until you get hit in the mouth. And then that motivation, the only way that stuff like that can perpetuate in a game is if you have success early and everybody jumps on the hype train and they've convinced themselves that that nobody thinks they can win, that they're overrated and all that stuff, and they really all get on the hype train from the very opening kickoff and come down like a bunch of banshees, and that can, I've seen that that can perpetuate through a game. But most of the time, it's just maybe a series, and then you're back to yourself.
Hey, we haven't talked about this. I know we got a super chat that just came in, but Coach, this is a very important one, I think. Not that one, the one ahead, the one before. The chat's moving fast. Dwayne Wehunt. By the way, he's back from Costa Rica. Dwayne, I always was jealous every day we were checking in from Costa Rica. How important do you feel special teams will be this week? And one point I want to make is, I'm a former punter. I love the punters. Michael Kern, true freshman, only punted it once. That was an inside the 20 punt. Texas had driven down the field. Obviously, Texas will have to punt at Michigan. If Texas doesn't have to punt at Michigan, the Michigan fans are leaving at the middle of the third quarter in that game. I'm just here to tell you. If Texas doesn't have to punt against Michigan in the big house. But let's just say they do have to punt. Michael Kern, true freshman, you're backed up in your own end zone. You shank a 15-yarder, that changes momentum in a football game. So special teams, very important. You feel good about Bird Auburn. I thought the special teams coverage was good last week. You only saw it in punt once. But I like who they have at Gunners. That was DeAndre Moore and Warren Roberson, Coach. But special teams on the road, big deal because momentum is everything in these games.
Yeah, Jeff Banks is not a guy that usually gets out coached. Almost every single game that I can think of where special teams have been impactful, there's been a couple in the 3 years, but most of them have gone our way. I think most of the breaks special teams make are going to be on UT side because we're so well coached and it's such a huge part of the emphasis, and likely so. I mean, those guys, you're talking about this is a huge game for guys playing for NFL scouts. Man, that's what they love to see as much as anything is guys going down and covering kickoff and covering punt and that type of thing. That's going to be huge, but I give Banks the advantage just because he's proven his special teams can be on another level.
Hey, there's actually a tremendous question from Colton Martinez, and I don't know the answer, and we're going to have to look this one up maybe for tomorrow, Blake. Colton Martinez, by the way, congrats. He's UT band, headed up to Ann Arbor. Thanks, fellas. Has anyone ever played the past two, really, because Georgia won back-to-back, national championship programs in one season? Now, I don't know the answer, but that's a hell of a question. We're going to find that answer for tomorrow, guys, because that's actually a really good question that somebody in the chat may be able to find before we get out of here today. But that's actually a tremendous question. I was trying to think back to – did Jimbo Fisher at A&M play Clemson in Alabama the same year when they were coming off national champs? That's something to look up. We might be able to find that. Jimbo may have at A&M because he had a really tough schedule when he was hired because Clemson was in the non-con, and then they had Bama and I think Georgia. I think they played all three of those. So A&M may have done it.
Well, I would start by looking at the SEC because chances are more times than not, the championship is won by the SEC, and so it would have been teams in the SEC playing.
Well, Brendan Bowersox, great point, Coach. Brendan Bowersox says Auburn and Alabama won back-to-back in 10 and 11, so the whole SEC West, I guess so.
Yeah.
All right, we got a couple of super chats we need to knock out pretty quick before we get out of here. Oh, actually, a lot of super chats now. We'll start with this one here. Slick Rick, will Bo Barnes be Anthony Hill 2.0, or is Grayson more of a stud than Barnes, Jerry?
I think Barnes was at Skyline right before the season began. 6'2", closing on 6'3", 239 pounds, was still moving really well. He ran 10.96 at the district track meet, 100 meters at 230 pounds. Had a great first game, 12 tackles, 3 pass breakups, 2 sacks, and a win over North Forney. By the way, some big high school games. One of those is Saturday up at the Sodos where they're playing the game. But Dallas Skyline plays Fort Bend Marshall, so 2 Texas commits. Caleb Chester, Elijah Bo Barnes going to go out at Saturday night at the Sodo as part of 2 days of doubleheaders at the Sodo. By the way, North Crowley plays DeSoto Friday night. If you're in DFW and want to go see 30, 35 Division I football players on the field at the same time, there's your game. I mean, there's some tremendous players in North Crowley, DeSoto game Friday night. Bo Barnes, I think, is different than Anthony Hill. I think they're different players. I really like Elijah Bo Barnes. There are similarities there. I think they're so good downhill. I think you can move them around. The chess pieces on the board. They can play off the edge. They can play from the mic spot if you want them to. I think Elijah Barnes is really good coverage too, guys. I think maybe he is a little underrated there for young players. He's made plays in coverage every year at Skyline from the linebacker spot. Anthony Hill's such a heat-sinking missile in high school. You didn't really want to ask him to play 8-10 yards off the ball because you felt like if you're at Denton Ryan, you're like, what are we doing that for? We want this guy fine ball, hit ball carrier, quarterback ball carrier. You wanted him being that heat-sinking missile he was. So I think Elijah Barnes may be asked to play in coverage a little bit more. The 2026 linebacker, Grayson Tyler Atkinson, I mean, he's a rare guy at 6'2" and change, 210 that is probably a legit 4-5 kid and that may even play a little faster when he sees the football and closes. He's pretty rare, guys, with the closing speed that I've seen in person in high school football linebacker. That means he's going to be the best player. That means he's going to be the highest drafted player. That's up to him. But, dude, Tyler Atkinson's pretty rare from what I've seen in person.
Then our next super chat comes from Tex Beats. What are the chances that Michigan is 2020 LSU?
I don't see that much of a fall off, Coach. I mean, that team obviously went the wrong direction, and Ed Orgeron ended up getting a $9 million check, I believe, to walk out the door, which is a good way to walk out the door. But, I don't know. I don't think Michigan's going to have that much of a fall off. I think they have too many good players on defense. They're going to be in it. They're going to be in. I'm not saying Texas can't go put some points on the board, but they should be in every game this season. I think there were some things going on at LSU at that time that really kind of made it go the other direction. But here's the thing I will say about Michigan this season. If Texas goes to Ann Arbor and wins and does so in convincing fashion, let's just say 14 points. Let's just say Texas wins by 2 touchdowns. What does that do to the psyche of a team whose head coach, strength and conditioning coach, everybody left last year? Is if the hint of doubt starts to creep in, Coach, it's weird how things can happen.
Yeah, along with some still rumblings going on that the investigation is still finding new things. So, yeah, they may not be feeling real good about themselves right now.
And then one for you, Jerry, from Justin Yarbrough. Thank you, Justin. Jerry, what are the recruits saying about the game versus Michigan?
Yeah, I think, the main thing was everybody's like Nick Brooks just excited to watch the game, excited to watch the Texas. The one thing about these kids nowadays is that they're very, Nick Brooks could talk about a Cam Williams, right? Because Cam Williams, first-year starter, a Kelvin Banks, and who they're going up against. I think when I started in this business, the games, they talk about the games, but because you have YouTube, which we're on, right, and the social media, these kids know so much more about opponents and who some of these players are because you see them on social media through recruiting. You kind of follow them. So all the guys I've talked to, they're very excited about the game. I will say this, though. I'm in Georgia this week. So you know what game's being talked about most. These kids, Tyler Atkinson, he's going to the Georgia-Texas game in Austin. Nick Brooks is going to the Texas game against Georgia. That's the game, just because of the state I'm in right now, that's being talked about the most is Georgia at Texas, October 19th. So not that people aren't talking about Michigan, but the state I'm in this week, they're already looking at October 19th because these are kids in the state of Georgia, and Georgia travels to Texas on the 19th. And a kid like the case of Tyler Atkinson, the 26 linebacker, both those teams are in his top 5, I think.
And then our last one for today, fellas, is a super chat from Anthony. Anthony, we appreciate it. And he says, I love how a lot of media is kind of sleeping on the Texas defense. I'm excited to see Trey Moore really unleashed.
Trey has shown some flashes, that's for sure. But I think I'm not totally sold on the fact that we're going to have a national championship type defense. I think, obviously things are really good inside with Anthony Hill and, David Benda. I love what we're doing with Jahdae Barron. I love how we're moving them around. I love the way the secondary has improved their play in the first game of the season. We'll see how that continues to go. But I, for one, am not quite sold yet on our defense being a national championship caliber defense. What do you think, Jerry?
Yeah, I think this is the big test this week, because Michigan do present they do present a game plan that will be executed by some others in the run game against Texas if Texas struggles. And I'm not saying everybody has the same personnel, but this is a first down run defense this week is a huge deal for me, not just in this game, but the way some teams are going to attack Texas in the SEC later this season. If Texas struggles to stop the run this week, that makes for an interesting remainder to schedule because what Georgia's offensive line can do. They wore Clemson down as that game went on. That's what big-time offensive lines do. Kentucky is going to try to run the football at you. Look, there's going to be a couple of other opponents that do that as well. So this game is a big test for Texas in that regard for me. If they pass the test, then I think that sets up extremely well. But to your point, Coach, I'm more – look, and I'm this way with – outside of Georgia that played Clemson, who really – Clemson isn't what they used to be. Obviously, have some fun with Dabo. But Clemson still has a lot of NFL players on that team. Peter Woods may be a first-rounder. They have talent on that defensive team. So outside of Georgia, I'm not sure we've seen anybody that's played somebody to where you could come away with a definitive opinion to start the season. So I'm more in a wait-and-see mode, and that's for Michigan as well and Texas. So this is big for me when I'm looking at the remainder of the schedule. Now, I will say this. What we saw last week, and A&M played Notre Dame, so that was a good test, right, to be fair. What we saw last week, Coach, Oklahoma offensively, their offensive line has some issues. I'm not sold on Jackson Arnold, haven't been. A&M obviously has got some offensive things they're going to have to work through. Who is outside of Georgia, who is a really good offensive team on Texas' schedule? The schedule sets up for Texas pretty well defensively this year if they pass the test Saturday.
Yeah, that's a good point.
All right, guys. Well, that's going to do it for today's episode of Coffee and Football, presented by Rick Vavro and Austin Underground. We want to thank them, along with Manscaped, HelloFresh, and Underdog Fantasy. Be sure to check all of our sponsors out. We would greatly appreciate it. We greatly appreciate you for tuning in, for the super chats, the great questions and conversation each and every day. Further that conversation by heading on over to ontexasfootball.com. Use promo code OTFOG. You get a full year for less than $40. You can't beat that. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button as well. Ring the bell so you're notified anytime that we go live or post content. Jerry's got something before we get out of here. What you got?
For the chat tomorrow. Look, I know we've all given score predictions. Obviously, we're going to give our score predictions in the morning. Everybody come with your score predictions tomorrow morning. I see Ashley 31-13. I see Isaac Darden 34-20. People, bring those last score predictions tomorrow. Let's have some fun with it.
There you go. And we will be back same time, same place tomorrow. Coach Shipley, thank you, by the way, for joining us today. It's a great time as always. Be sure to listen for him Saturday night, Abilene Christian. He will be on the call. So we will all be tuning in for that after the Texas game for sure. And for Bob Shipley and Jerry Hamilton, I'm Blake Monroe, and we'll see you next time.